So you want to feel close to your partner. You want to feel more competent, more confident at expressing what's important to you, at really telling your partner how you feel about things. And maybe you're noticing that it's kind of tricky, that you're stumbling on your words, or perhaps you're expressing yourself in a way that your partner really doesn't get it, doesn't understand you. Or perhaps you're expressing in a way that creates more disconnection between you. Perhaps without even realizing it, there's blame and judgment in the language that you use. And rather than your partner hearing the beauty of what you're trying to say to them and feeling closer to you, there's more distance being created. This can also happen when we simply don't know what to say. And so we storm out of the room, we leave the situation, we do what we can in order to protect ourselves because there's this frustration that's living within us, this kind of, wow, I just don't know how to say this thing that I'm trying to say. Another thing that can happen is that you try and say it and it just doesn't work. And it's like, how did my partner hear that? How did they hear that I'm telling them that they're not a good listener or that they don't care about me? When actually, what I really meant to say is that I feel quite vulnerable at the moment. And there's something so important I want to share. And I wonder if you have 5 minutes to stop with me and take a moment and take in what I'm saying before we go to any conclusions, before we move to how you feel about that. And so the skill of self-expression, of being able to really express what it is that you need, starts with understanding what it is that I need, what it is that I want, what it is that's actually happening for me. And before I even express myself to the other person, I want to check actually, what is my intention? What's the intention behind sharing whatever it is that I want to share with the other person? I really want to get clear on that. Like, what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that I'm hoping for by telling my partner this, by speaking to this person right now, by sharing what's on my heart? And so I would love to invite you to think of a moment where you tried to express yourself to your partner, to a loved one, and it just really didn't work out. And I'd love you to take a pen and paper and write about that moment for a few seconds, for a few minutes, even stop this video. Just allow yourself to write about what happened when you tried to express yourself. What were you trying to express? And what was your motivation? What were you trying to get out of the conversation? What were you hoping you would achieve by having this conversation with your partner or your loved one? So hopefully you paused the video, you spent some time with that. And I invite you now to have a look at your test, I invite you now to have a look at your text and notice the motivating factors behind your wish to express yourself. Were you hoping to be seen and understood? Were you hoping to be in reality together about what actually happened and somehow check that you're both on the same page about something? Were you perhaps hoping to understand your partner about something that they did, and so you're expressing yourself in order to understand them more? Or were you wanting to express yourself because you feel hurt and hoping that maybe they will feel a little bit of the hurt that you're feeling by you telling them the things that you told them? Maybe teach them a little bit of a lesson. Maybe get them to feel a little bit of that pain as well. But there's nothing wrong if your answer was the latter, because that wanting to teach the other person a lesson or get them to feel the pain that you're feeling is just a tragic way of saying, hey, I'm in a lot of pain and I want recognition for my pain. I want to be seen in the pain that I'm feeling. I would love to have that heard and recognized and understood in a way that feels like you really get me and you really care, and that my experience matters to you. And we don't know how to say that because it feels vulnerable to express from that place. And so quite often, instead of going into vulnerability, we choose to blame or judge the other or teach the other person a lesson, because somehow it feels less risky than going into that vulnerable place. And so we act out of hurt and hope that somehow we will achieve this sense of being understood by hurting the other. I don't know about you, but very rarely does that work. And if it does work, it doesn't mean that that person is then going to feel closer to us. Most probably, they're going to spiral into a sense of guilt and shame, or they will get angry with us. And again, that creates disconnection, because rather than coming closer to our experience and understanding us, they're going into a spiral of, I've done something wrong, I'm a bad person. And it becomes about what they should have done differently and how they should have been better towards you, rather than actually connecting with why that was painful for you and what it is that you really wanted to experience instead. So let's have a look again at the motivation behind your wish to have this conversation with your partner. Just connecting with that motivation again. Let's take this as an opportunity to really, really connect with the reason why I want to have this conversation, why it's important for me, what it is that I want to get out of having this conversation with them. And if there's any part that's there that's wanting to pay them back or teach them a lesson, connecting with the vulnerability that's behind that wish, and spending some moments writing about why it is that it feels vulnerable, what it is that feels vulnerable, and that stops you from actually expressing that vulnerability directly. And so wherever you are in this process of connecting with your motivation, I want you to imagine having that conversation with your partner and expressing this first step, your motivation for the conversation, the reason why you want to actually speak to them or share the thing that you want to share with them before you even share it. So what that could look like is, hey, I noticed that I really want to share something with you that's very important to me. And it feels quite scary for me to do so because I really, really, really want to be heard and understood about this. And I'm afraid that if I just launch into it, it might be triggering for you to hear. So I'm wondering if you feel available to listen to me for a few minutes, just while I explore this vulnerable thing. Do you feel available for me right now? So I ended there with a request and a check-in to see if the other person is actually willing and available to listen to me. So if you're connected with your motivation, I'm imagining that right now you feel ready to have that conversation. And before you have that conversation, just really connect to the needs behind your motivation, the reason why it is that you want to have this conversation, because that, I believe, is going to support you so much in making your message clearer and easier to digest, because the other person is connected with your heart rather than with that first reactivity of wanting to blame and judge them or teach them a lesson. They're connecting to the heart of what's important to you rather than the story that you have about them. If you've enjoyed this session, follow me for more YouTube videos and podcasts on communicating clearly, confidently in your relationships.